The title of today's talk is Guaranteed for Stream Entry Before Death. Let me check a couple of things with the audience before I continue. First of all, how many people here don't understand what stream entry means? Hands up. Oh, so you want to find out what it is before you die? What's so great about having a guarantee for stream entry before you die? Well, according to Buddhist doctrine, there are 4 stages of enlightenment, or 4 stages of awakening. The final stage is arahantship, which is liberation, total liberation from the round of continual birth and death. But there are 3 lower stages of awakening. The first stage is called a stream enterer, Sotapanna. Stream entry means the state of becoming a Sotapanna, a stream enterer. The second stage is a Sakadagami, or once returner. The third stage is Anagami, or non-returner. So let's get back to the first stage. The first stage is a stream enterer, a Sotapanna. Sota means stream. Apanna means enterer. One who has entered the stream. What does that mean? What is the stream? The stream is the noble eightfold path. And what's so great about becoming a stream enterer? When one attains stream entry, then at that moment of attainment, one abandons the 3 lower fetters. They are, number 1, Sakkaya Ditthi, wrong view of personality, or wrong view that there is an unchanging person, I, the sense of I. Number 2 is having doubts in regard to the Buddha, his teachings, and awakened members of his disciples. The third fetter that he has abandoned is Silabata Paramasa, grasping at rites and rituals, which we briefly talked about last Sunday. We talk a lot about rites and rituals, but I just mentioned briefly that the Sotapanna, or the stream enterer, has gone beyond grasping to mere rites and rituals, thinking that by performing such practices, one would become liberated, become awakened. So these are the 3 lower fetters. First is wrong view that there is a permanent, unchanging self. The second is doubts about the Buddha, his genuine enlightenment, awakening, and his teachings that lead to awakening, and members of the Noble Sangha who have awakened to the truth. And the last one is clinging or grasping at rites and rituals, thinking that they can bring one to awakening or liberation. In order to get to that state of a Sotapanna, one is supposed to have the Dhamma eye arise within oneself, which means that the eye of wisdom is able to perceive important aspects of reality, particularly being able to see that all things that are perceptible through the senses, particularly the 5 senses, are subject to arising and passing away due to changing causes and conditions. He is able to understand it through his own personal experience. And according to some suttas, he also had a glimpse of Nibbana, which is the cessation of all conditioned phenomena. Now, although the experience of Nibbana may be something quite extraordinary and spectacular, because it's something that normal people wouldn't understand or wouldn't experience, the experience per se is not as important as the consequences of that first glimpse of Nibbana. What are the consequences? The most important consequence is that at the very moment of attainment of stream entry, that person will never go down to the lower realms again. Whatever bad karma that he has done in the past, even in past lifetimes, before he became a Sotapanna, that would lead to or generate rebirth in the lower realms would all become defunct. All those past karma that can lead to rebirth in the lower realms, becoming a hell being, a ghost, or an animal, would become defunct. And he would be incapable of creating any new karma that can land him in the lower realms, generate rebirth in the lower realms. Thirdly, because of that moment of enlightenment, of that attainment, of that glimpse of Nibbana, he will not come back to this world for more than 7 times. Imagine samsara is eternity. There's no beginning and there's no end. You can't even count how many lifetimes you have gone through before this one, and how many more you will go if you had not become a Sotapanna. The Sotapanna has an expiry date for his existence in samsara. Only 7 more lifetimes coming back to this sensual world. So that's what a Sotapanna is. Okay? One who has attained stream entry would be possessed of all these attributes. The second stage of awakening is called the state of being a one-returner. A once-returner has a deeper experience of Nibbana, and because of his deeper experience of Nibbana, he attenuates 2 other fetters. He does not actually eradicate them or abandon them, but they become diminished. And these 2 are sensual desire and ill will. So a person who is very bad-tempered, when he becomes Sotapanna, maybe he diminishes a little bit, and then when he becomes a Sakadagami or once-returner, then it has become even more diminished, but not yet completely eradicated. So the Sakadagami, the once-returner, does not eradicate or abandon any fetters. He just diminishes 2 additional ones. The first 3 have been eradicated when he had become a Sotapanna earlier on. The once-returner is so called because he has even a shorter lifespan in samsara. His expiry date is even shorter. Only 1 more lifetime coming back to this sensual realm before his total liberation from samsara. The third stage of enlightenment is an anagami, a non-returner, which means that this person will no longer come back to the sensual realm. So what has this person accomplished? The one who has attained this third stage of awakening would have abandoned the 2 things, the 2 fetters that the once-returner had attenuated, which means no more sensual desire, no more ill will, no more anger. So an anagami, a non-returner, cannot get angry, cannot be disappointed, cannot have any depression, cannot have any sadness, no negative, unpleasant mental feelings at all. And he would also have no desires for pleasures of the senses, the 5 senses. Desire for seeing beautiful forms, listening to pleasant music, fragrant smells, delicious food, and pleasant tactile objects. At this third stage of awakening, because he no longer has any sensual desires, nor any ill will, it is very easy for him to get the jhanas. Because what prevents people from getting the jhanas is their attachment to the pleasures of the senses. Whether or not he gets jhana, whether or not he deliberately practices to get jhana, when he dies from this human realm, he will automatically be reborn in the Brahma realm. The Brahma realm is a place where people with jhanas get reborn into after they die, provided they are able to maintain their attainment. Then the final stage of awakening is that of an arahant, and the arahant has overcome the 5 upper fetters. What are they? The first one is desire for existence in the Brahma realm, the subtle form realm of the Brahmas. And the second is desire for existence in the non-material Brahma realm, where there is no body, no form, just consciousness. So these are the two fetters. And then three more. The third one is no more pride. Asmimana, the sense of I am great, I am such a person. This is very different from the wrong view of a self that the Sotapanna or the stream enterer has eradicated. Although the stream enterer has eradicated the view that there is a self, the sense of self is still there. And this sense of self will still be there through the second stage and the third stage of awakening. And it can only be eradicated in the final stage of becoming an arahant. The next fetter that an arahant has eradicated is that of restlessness. If you have been watching your mind, you will know how restless our minds are. Every time the mind comes to contact with any of the six senses, the five senses as well as mind objects, then it will start to comment and start to proliferate. And it's not something that you can stop. It's very automatic. But an arahant has eradicated that. So his mind will not be restless. He is in total control of his mental reaction or response to the senses. And finally, he has totally eradicated ignorance, avidya, that basic or that fundamental defilement or fetter that binds everybody to samsara. Although the Sotapanna or the stream enterer has eradicated a little bit of avidya, not totally. Avidya can only be totally eradicated when one becomes an arahant. Okay, so how many people here want to become a Sotapanna before you die? Hands up. So few ah? So few ah? Really? Okay, let me ask you another question. In this modern world, with all your devices, all of you have got planners, right? You got yearly planner, monthly planner, weekly planner, and daily planner. You all have planned a lot for what's going to happen in this life, or what you intend to do in this life. Have you planned for the future life? How many of you have made your will? Hands up. Okay. So, how many of you here wants to come back to the human world? Hands up. How many of you wants to go up to heaven? Hands up. Oh, the rest all wants to become arahant. Wow, amazing. Now, looking at the state of the world right now, do you think that it will become better? No, right? Look at so much environmental degradation and devastation that is going on in this world, in this planet. And people have been claiming that so much environmental devastation has resulted in global warming and so forth, and creating a lot of natural calamities and catastrophes. And not only that, look at the political situation throughout the whole world. You have despotic state leaders, heads of state. You have politicians who are dishonest. You have social and economic injustice. And then religious extremism. And there's been fighting in the Middle East for centuries until now. Do you think that it's going to get any better? No. Migration has been happening since time immemorial. Mass migrations. That's how we landed up here. Right? So you see people right now, Middle Easterns are migrating to Europe. Right? Many South Americans are migrating to North America, to the USA. And the Bangladeshis and the Rohingyas are migrating to Malaysia. And Malaysians are migrating elsewhere. So it's a global phenomena that has been happening all the time. In the old days, there were no passports, no visas, and so you just travel in your boat or in your caravan or whatever. Nowadays, because of visas and passports, it becomes more apparent. But everybody is driven by what? By lobha, dosa, and moha. Right? They all want something better than what they're already getting. Yeah, and those people, those heads of state, they are despotic also because of greed for power, authority, fortune. And everybody is driven by desire for security, for success, for wealth, for promotion, right? And then when you don't get what you want, then what do? You resort to violence. Yeah, and because of delusion, then there's intolerance. So it's all greed, hatred, and delusion that is running the show. That's what keeps us in samsara. So, knowing that things won't get better in the future, why come back to the human world? Perhaps you are influenced by some Dhamma preachers, mostly from the Tibetan tradition, who emphasize the preciousness of human life for various reasons. Like, only in the human plane, human realm, can there be a Sammasambuddha. Only in the human realm can someone make an aspiration to become a Sammasambuddha. And unlike the Deva realms, where pleasure predominates, and the lower realms, where suffering predominates, in the human realm, there is enough of suffering and happiness to nudge you, to motivate you to seek liberation. The Devas are all enjoying themselves, they don't see suffering, so they are just being complacent. The hell beings, the ghosts, and the animals don't have a chance to do any good deeds or to cultivate their minds. In fact, they are so bound up by suffering that their aspirations cannot go beyond just being free from that physical suffering that they are undergoing. So people say that if you go to the celestial realms, because there's so much pleasure there, you might indulge in those pleasures, become negligent, and forget all about the Dhamma. So better to come back to this world. Yeah, then you will be shaken to see suffering and practice to get out of samsara. But then again, there are dangers. Who knows where you'll be reborn? And who knows, by the time you come back, what is the state of the sasana going to be like? Will there be people who will still be around to lead and guide you to practice? Or even if you become a Sotapanna and you come back to this world, how would the environment be like? The political situation, the social situation. Will they conduce to practice for further progress? So, perhaps it's better to make an aspiration to go up to the Deva realm. And it's not really that difficult. There's one sutta called Dhanupapatti Sutta in the Anguttara Nikaya Book of Eights, Sutta number 35. Let me read part of the sutta to you. Here, someone gives a gift to an ascetic or Brahmin, food and drink, clothing and vehicles, garlands, scents and unguents, bedding, dwellings and lighting. Whatever he gives, he expects something in return. He sees affluent Khattiyas, nobles, affluent Brahmins, or affluent householders, enjoying themselves, furnished and endowed with the 5 objects of sensual pleasure. It occurs to him, oh, with the breakup of the body after death, may I be reborn in companionship with affluent Khattiyas, affluent Brahmins, or affluent householders. He sets his mind on this, fixes his mind on this, and develops this state of mind. That aspiration of his, resolved in what is inferior, not developed higher, leads to rebirth there. And that is for one who is virtuous, I say, not for one who is immoral. The heart's wish of one who is virtuous succeeds because of his purity. Unquote. This is the first paragraph. I'm sure that many of you have many worldly, successful idols in your mind. Maybe some of you aspire to become like Bill Gates or some big figure who is rich and wealthy and is also philanthropic. Because of the aspiration, whenever you do some merits, you might think, oh, may I next time be like him? If you really have that aspiration in you, coming back because you have somebody in this world whom you idolize and would like to emulate. And then you nurture that aspiration, make it every time you do dana. Then according to the Buddha, provided you also keep your precepts, then your wish can come true. So, not really that difficult, right? But only if you are virtuous, not if you are not virtuous. If you are not virtuous and then you do a lot of dana, what will happen to you? You come back as a royal elephant or a royal stallion or the Pekingese of a multimillionaire, enjoying all the comforts of luxurious life, but no chance to practice. This is the book of 8, so there are altogether 8 scenarios. This is the first one. The second one is about going to the Deva realm. The first one is still confined to this world. You're trying to emulate, aspire to become somebody whom you admire, some worldly person, successful worldly person. Now, someone else gives a gift to an ascetic or Brahmin, food and drink, etc., and lighting. Whatever he gives, he expects something in return. He has heard the Devas ruled by the 4 great kings are long-lived, beautiful, and abound in happiness. And because of what he has heard, then he aspires to be reborn in the company of the 4 great kings. And so because he made this wish, whenever he does dana, he will reinforce it again and again, and also try to keep his sila. Then a person can realize his ambition. Similarly, for the other layers of the Deva realms, for Tavatimsa, Tusita, Nimanarati, the realm where the Devas delight in their creations, and then the highest realm, which is the realm where the Devas delight in the creations of others. They don't create, others create and they enjoy. And all of these, the Buddha says, can be realized provided you make this aspiration and again every time you do dana to an ascetic or Brahmin. And also provided you keep your sila intact. The 8th permutation, the 8th scenario is the Brahma realm. So this person has heard that the Devas of Brahma's company are long-lived, beautiful, and abound in happiness. And because of that hearsay, he determines to be reborn there, he keeps his sila. And he can be reborn there if he does all these things. When he does dana, he reiterates his aspiration, he tries to keep his sila, and not only that, he has to go beyond sensual desires, which means to say, he must attain the jhanas. So the Buddha says, for the first 7 scenarios, all you need to do is to do dana, maintain that aspiration in your mind steadfastly, and keep your sila. Whereas for the 8th scenario, not only must you maintain your aspiration when you do dana every time, not only must you try to be impeccable in your sila, but you must also attain the jhanas. Then only will you be able to realize your ambition. So, not so difficult, isn't it, to go up the Deva realm? There's one website which says, just be good and you can go to heaven. But then again, in another sutta, in the Anguttara Nikaya Book of Force, 123 and 125, there are 2 suttas. One is about jhana, the 4 jhanas, and the other one is about the 4 Brahma Viharas. So in these 2 suttas, it is stated that there's a difference between the meditative results of a worldling and that of a knowledgeable disciple of the Noble One. In the first case, It says that a worldling may develop the 4 jhanas, and after that he dies and is reborn in the respective Brahma realms, provided, of course, he maintains his jhana until he dies, or when he dies. Then that worldling can take rebirth in the respective Brahma realms. He enjoys his life there, which is extremely long, and at the expiry of his karma, he can come back to the human world or go down even to the deepest lower realms, even go down to hell. However, for a knowledgeable disciple of the Noble One, after he has attained the jhanas and gained rebirth in the respective Brahma realms, he or she will attain parinibbana right there. That's because in the next sutta, 124, it talks about how a knowledgeable disciple of the Noble One practices vipassana using the jhanas. Then in 125, it is about the 4 Brahma Viharas. Similarly, for a Puthujjana, a worldling who practices the 4 Brahma Viharas, after they die, they can be reborn in the respective Brahma realms. And after that, they can even go down to hell, after their karma expires up there. But for the knowledgeable disciple of the Noble One, he will be reborn in the respective Brahma realm and will attain parinibbana there. Parinibbana means total liberation. That means he becomes an arahant there. In the next sutta, in 126, it talks about how this is done. It says that a knowledgeable disciple of the Noble One develops the 4 Brahma Viharas, respectively. And then he practices vipassana after that, looking back at the 5 aggregates. Right, so perhaps it's good to make an aspiration. We have already seen that this world, this planet, is not going to become any better in the future. So, why not make an aspiration to become a deva, go up to the deva realm and become a sotapan there? Right? Good, isn't it? If you can't become a sotapan now, make an aspiration to become a sotapan there. But better to do it here lah. If we can get it here, safer, isn't it? Is it that difficult to become a sotapan? I'm sure the title of today's talk would appear to be very good to many of you, but perhaps you would think quite unreachable. But really, it's not that difficult either. Okay, there's one story in the Samyutta Nikaya. It's the Sotapatti Samyutta, all about stream entry, the connected discourses about stream entry. Number 25 is about a Sakyan by the name of Sarakani. Now Sarakani the Sakyan died, and the Buddha declared that he was a Sotapan. And then his friends started to go around saying that if Sarakani can be a Sotapan, then who cannot be a Sotapan? Because he is a drinker and he did not fulfill his training. What do you mean by that? Because they expect a Sotapan to be one who abstains from drinking. But he drinks alcohol. And his friends all knew that he drank alcohol. And it was rather incredible to them that he could become a Sotapana when he was a drinker. So in that sutta, Mahanama, the Buddha's cousin, approached the Buddha and told him what had happened. That he was a laughing stock, because the Buddha declared that he was a Sotapan, but everybody knows that he's a drinker. How can a drinker become a Sotapan? Then the Buddha gave a very long discourse talking about people who will not go down to the lower realms. And the first thing he said was, how can Sarakani go down to the lower realms? Because one who has taken refuge in the Buddha, the Dhamma and the Sangha will not go down to the lower realms. And Sarakani has taken refuge in the Buddha, the Dhamma and the Sangha for a long time. So how could it be possible for him to go down to the lower realms? Now, I would like to take this with a pinch of salt. It doesn't mean that every time you come and say Buddham Saranam Gacchami, Dhammam Saranam Gacchami, Sangham Saranam Gacchami, you won't go to the lower realms. Then the Buddha went on to list a list of people who won't go down to the lower realms. It starts off with the Arahant, then the Anagami, then the Sakadagami, and then the Sotapan. It is all these 4 individuals, people who have attained the 4 stages of awakening. They are incapable of falling into the lower realms. Then it comes on to 2 other individuals. These 2 individuals do not have experiential, confirmed faith in the Buddha, the Dhamma, and the Sangha like the other 4. But one of them accepts the Buddha's teachings based on intellectual understanding. And the other one accepts the Buddha's teaching based on mere faith. Plus, these 2 individuals have the 5 spiritual faculties. What are they? First one is faith or belief. Second is energy. Third is mindfulness. Fourth is samadhi. And the 5th is panya, or wisdom. So there are these 5 spiritual faculties. So for these 2 persons also, they will not go down to the lower realms. But not to say that they will never go down to the lower realms for the rest of samsara. It's only for the next life. They will not go down to the lower realms. After giving this long discourse about these different types of individuals who won't go down to the lower realms, the Buddha again ended by saying that Sarakani has taken refuge in the Buddha, the Dhamma, and the Sangha for so long, so it's impossible for him to go down to the lower realms. And the final sentence is that he has become a Sotapan because he fulfilled his training before he died. Which means to say that he abstained from drinking before he died, and he became a Sotapan then. Because it was so obvious to everybody else that he was a drinker. So probably he only stopped drinking before his final hours, and then at that time he attained to stream entry. Now, is that really possible? Okay, let's go on to the next series of suttas. It's called the Okkanti Samyutta. Again in the Samyutta Nikaya. The first 10 suttas are about the Sotapan and these 2 individuals. The person who accepts the Buddha's teachings based on faith alone, called a Satta Nusari, a faith follower. And the other type of person is one who accepts the Buddha's teachings out of intellectual understanding, who is called a Dhamma Nusari, a Dhamma follower. Okay, let's see what this Samyutta says about these 2 individuals. Before that, the Buddha talked about his teachings, upon which these people believe and accept. And what are his teachings? His teachings are that the 6 senses are impermanent, changing, becoming otherwise. And he says that one who places faith in these teachings, that the 6 senses are impermanent, changing, and becoming otherwise, and resolves on them thus, is called a faith follower. One who has entered the fixed course of rightness, entered the plane of superior persons, transcended the plane of the worldlings. He is incapable of doing any deed by reason of which he might be reborn in hell, in the animal realm, or in the domain of ghosts. He is incapable of passing away without having realized the fruit of stream entry. Okay? So if you become a faith follower, you'll be assured of stream entry before you die. Even though you're not yet one. Maybe like Sarakani, at the last moment before you die, you become a Sotapan. Then, one for whom these teachings are accepted thus, after being pondered to a sufficient degree with wisdom, is called a Dhamma follower. One who has entered the fixed course of rightness, entered the plane of superior persons, transcended the plane of the worldlings. He is incapable of doing any deed by reason of which he might be reborn in hell, in the animal realm, or in the domain of ghosts. He is incapable of passing away without having realized the fruit of stream entry. Okay? So if your faith faculty is not so strong, and you're more of an intellectual, you still have a chance. What are the teachings you accept? Just these few things. The six senses are impermanent, changing, becoming otherwise. Isn't that true? Aren't the six senses impermanent and changing, becoming otherwise all the time? They are, right? So what's difficult to accept? So either you are all faith followers or Dhamma followers, right? By definition. Oh, but there's a catch somewhere. You haven't seen it yet. Okay, let me go on to his definition of a Sotapanna. Just now, these two individuals, the faith follower and the Dhamma follower, merely accept the teachings based on faith and on intellectual pondering. But one who knows and sees these things thus is called a stream enterer, no longer bound to the netherworld, fixed in destiny, with enlightenment as his destination. What he's trying to say is that one who knows and sees these teachings, knows and sees through his own personal experience that these things are impermanent, changing, becoming otherwise. Then only he's a Sotapanna. If you don't see, you just accept out of faith and out of intellectual reasoning, not just Sotapanna. But a Sotapanna is one who has seen, who knows and sees through his own personal experience. The Buddha goes on to the other 9 suttas. The first suttas talk about the six senses. The six senses are impermanent, changing, becoming otherwise. Right? The second sutta talks about the six sense objects. The next one talks about the sixth sense consciousness. The next one, number 4, talks about the sixth sense experience, phassa, what we call contact. The fifth sutta talks about feeling born out of the sixth sense experience. You see something or hear something and then feeling arises. Even that feeling is impermanent, changing, becoming otherwise. Then he talks about volition with regard to the six sense objects. Volition of wanting to see something you like, wanting to hear something you like. That sort of volition is also changing, impermanent, becoming otherwise. The 8th sutta talks about craving for the six sense objects. The 9th talks about the 6 elements: earth, water, fire, air, space, and consciousness. These elements also change. They are also impermanent. They become otherwise. And finally, the 10th sutta talks about the 5 aggregates. The 5 aggregates of form, feeling, perception, volitional formation, mental formations, and consciousness. So all these things are impermanent, changing, becoming otherwise. You all believe, don't you? Right? Either out of faith or out of personal experience to some extent. So, difficult to become a Sotapanna or not? Okay, but there's a catch here. You see, in the definition, the Buddha says that these two persons, whether he's a faith follower or a Dhamma follower, he has entered the fixed course of rightness. Now the term, the fixed course of rightness, actually refers to the Noble Eightfold Path. That means these two individuals have entered the Noble Eightfold Path. Okay? Entered the plane of superior persons, transcended the plane of the worldlings. If they are no longer worldlings, then what are they? They are Ariyas. They are noble ones, but they have not had a glimpse of Nibbana yet. Okay? He is incapable of doing any deed by reason of which he might be reborn in hell. Okay, this is where the catch is. He is incapable of doing any deed by reason of which he might be reborn in hell, the animal realm, or in the domain of ghosts. Now, this will decide whether you are really a faith follower or a Dhamma follower. What sort of things, if done, will lead one to the lower realms? If you think that you are really a faith follower or a Dhamma follower, test yourself. What are the things that you do that can lead you to the lower realms? If you know the 10 types of unwholesome deeds, the 10 causes of unwholesome action, the 3, 4, 3. Okay? 3 is connected with the body, 4 connected with speech, and 3 connected with the mind. With the first 3, you already know is in your 5 precepts. The first 3. If you kill intentionally, if you take what is not given intentionally, if you intentionally commit sexual misconduct, this will create the karmic potential that can land you in the lower realms. The 4, with regard to speech, lying. One thing that most businessmen confess that they will not be able to do. Lying. Number 2, divisive speech. Divisive speech means speaking in such a way that you deliberately divide people who are harmonious, who are already in harmony, good friends. And you go and say things in order to split them, to divide them. Now, the things you say may be true or untrue. Doesn't matter. If your intention is wanting to split, wanting to create disharmony, then you have already committed an act that can land you in the lower realms. The third is harsh speech. Harsh speech means speaking in such a way that hurts another person. If you are a family person, you will know that spouses, when they are unhappy with one another, they tend to speak hurtful words. Say things that hurt the other party. One can be very sarcastic in one's words, say and do things to hurt the other person. So that is harsh speech. The 4th one is frivolous speech, unbeneficial speech. Sit down and just gossip for no reason, just for enjoyment, no benefit, worldly or spiritual. So these are the 4. Getting more difficult, right? And then the last 3. The last 3 are connected with the mind. The first one is covetousness, desiring something or somebody that belongs to someone else. And this goes on only in the mind. You have not done anything through speech or action yet. It's only in the mind. You desire somebody's wife, you desire somebody's husband. You have not done anything yet, haven't seduced him. It's just in your mind. That's good enough to create the potential for you to land in the lower realms. Next one is ill will. It's a very malevolent sort of ill will. It's like wishing for the harm of others. Like, you hate that person so much that you wish that he will be struck by lightning, he will get a heart attack, or a car will run over him. I'll tell you a true story. This happened in 1984 when I was helping Saru Pandita in Barre, Massachusetts, in the Insight Meditation Society Center. He was leading a 3-month retreat there, and I was an interpreter. Vazan Yogi, she seems to be a very bad-tempered woman. You can see the way she walks. Instead of doing very graceful walking meditation, she goes around doing stomping meditation. She stomps around and you can see her face is that she's never happy. She was supposed to do Vipassana meditation. And she came to report one day that she was sitting in the hall and right in front of her was her enemy, another lady whom she hated so much. So she sat behind her, closed her eyes and visualized that person, and she was killing her, Supposed to be doing Vipassana meditation. She's visualizing her enemy and she is killing her. You see, that sort of malevolent thought is enough to create the karmic potential for you to be reborn in a lower realm. Okay? And the final one is wrong view. Wrong view means not believing in the law of karma, not believing in rebirth, not believing that there can be spontaneous birth, not believing that there could be spiritual practitioners who could see or be aware of other worlds besides ours. Okay, so these are the 10. If you think that you are really a faith follower or a Dhamma follower who will definitely become a Sotapan before you die, test yourself and see whether you qualify. So why do these 2 people qualify? Because their faith in the teaching or their belief in the Buddha's teaching of impermanence is so great that it is able to prevent them from committing these 10 types of unwholesome actions. Right? So, even though you don't go for meditation, if you have enough faith in the Buddha and belief in the Buddha's teachings, that could actually help you to prevent the committing of all these 10 types of unwholesome deeds. And if you can do that, then before you die, you're supposed to attain stream entry. So it's a guarantee. Even though you cannot become a stream enterer right now, it's easier to become a Saddhanusari or a Dhammanusari, a faith follower or a Dhamma follower. That is basically about keeping your precepts. But it's also about the mind, because the last three are about the mind. So, in the meantime, while waiting to become a Sotapan before you die, might as well start practicing. Yeah? Watch your mind. Keep on watching your mind every day. Try to come back to the present moment, to keep it anchored in the present moment so that it doesn't get caught up in thoughts about the past, present and future, particularly all these thoughts that can land you in the lower realms. So, okay, right, so now you can still make an aspiration. You can still make an aspiration to become a Sotapan, whether in this life or in next life, but don't come back to this world. Don't come back to the human world. It's not going to get any better. Okay, let me stop here and open up to the floor. If anyone has any questions, please feel free to ask.
Okay, just say someone becomes a Sotapanna. If the person is reborn in a human realm, they still could be suffering, right? I mean, because people are not born with a mind which is wise or whatever. Or will the conditions be good? Or will there also be suffering? Is the question. There could be a lot of suffering, right? Or not?
Well, a Sotapan, after he dies, will not be reborn in the lower realms. He can come back as a human being. But then, as I said, our planet is not going to get any better, and you might end up in a worse situation than you are right now. Okay? So that's why it's safer to go up. Don't come back here. Okay, anyone else?
Can a non-Buddhist be a Sotapan?
Sotapans can only be found in the Buddhist teachings. Other people don't call themselves Sotapans. So by definition, you have to be a Buddhist. Or when you become a Sotapan, automatically you're a Buddhist. Because you have experiential, confirmed faith in the Buddha, the Dhamma and the Sangha. Okay? Hope that answers the question.
Thank you, Venerable Sir, for sharing these very important Dhamma teachings. My question is, for someone, a lay Buddhist, who is virtuous, who practices dana and observes the sila. Now, as he or she practices along the path, how does one know that he or she has arrived at perhaps the first stage, Sotapanna, maybe second stage, Sakadagami, or even third stage, Anagami, not to mention Arahant. That's the last one. I mean, just out of reality, because I think most people will think, yes, I do this, I do that, but how do I know where I am now?
There are two criteria for that. One is that all these awakened disciples are supposed to have had a glimpse of Nibbana. So that is a very super mundane experience, which is out of the world experience. So if you have really become one, you will know it. Okay? Secondly, some people can fool themselves. They have some spectacular experience which they have never experienced before in a meditation retreat, and they think that they have got it. Okay? So the second criteria is more important, which is look at your own precepts. Look at the 5 fetters that I talked about, whether they have really been eradicated. Now, the fetters are not so stringent, the criteria, because the first 3 fetters are what? Sakkaya Ditthi, belief in a permanent unchanging self. Even without meditating, if you accept the Buddha's teaching, you would say that, I don't believe there's a permanent unchanging self. I'm changing all the time. All my cells are changing every moment. Right? My mind is changing. My feelings are changing. Okay? So you could sort of fool yourself, thinking that you have completed this one. The second one is doubt. I'm very staunch Buddhist. I got no doubt about the Buddha. He was fully enlightened. Dhamma is true and correct. The only true thing. Nothing else is true. And so forth. You can also fool yourself. The third one, about grasping to rites and rituals, you can also fool yourself. You know that just simply by taking chopsticks and praying to the Buddha or chanting every day, it won't bring me to become enlightened. Yeah, I have to do something else like reading the suttas or practicing meditation, which I've already done, and I think I got it. So these three are still not very convincing. Right? Most important thing is check your 5 precepts. Alright? That's the next one. Then even more foolproof is the 10 that I talked about. 10 causes of unwholesome actions. They are the root cause for any rebirth in the lower realms. So if you're really a Sotapan, you'll be incapable of doing them automatically without having to restrain yourself. Okay?
Earlier in Samyutta Nikaya 25, the Okanti Samyutta, Bhante actually mentioned about the Sotapanna having developed the knowing and seeing, the Jnana Dasana, in respect of the Salayatana to Rupa, all the way to the Dhatu and the Khandas, as set out in the 10 suttas. But I also noticed that in Samyutta Nikaya 55, in the Sotapatti Samyutta, the Buddha, when he describes the Sotapanna, in some suttas, he only mentions that the Sotapanna actually has developed the 4 factors, which is actually the unshakable faith in Buddha Dhamma Sangha, and also the Aryan Sila, and also having observed the 5 precepts impeccably. And by those standards, that person would be a Sotapanna. So to me, there seems to be a disparity, a difference in terms of how a Sotapanna is actually being described, in terms of the level of wisdom that's required for a Sotapanna. So perhaps, Bhante, you could enlighten us how that disparity can be explained. Thank you.
First of all, I want to correct one thing you said. Actually, there's no explicit evidence in the suttas which says that the Sotapan is impeccable in the 5 precepts. Right? It's only saying that he is possessed of the virtue that is cherished by the noble ones. Correct? Only that is a stock phrase. But we can piece things together because the 10 causes of unwholesome actions, which I mentioned just now, are stated by the Buddha in several suttas as the root cause for rebirth in the lower realms. So, through logical reasoning, a Sotapan or even a Sadanusari or Dhammanusari will be incapable of performing these 10 causes of unwholesome actions because they were declared by the Buddha of not being able to go down the lower realms. Right? So, by implication, they would not be able to do these things anymore. Okay? That's one thing. Another thing is, you must remember that the Buddha tailored his discourses to the audience he was speaking to. So he gives different aspects of a Sotapan in different suttas to different people. So our job is to look at different things and piece everything together and get a composite picture. Just like this Dhammanusari and Sadanusari thing, it is mentioned also in several places in the suttas, but never completely. For example, in Sarakani Sutta, about Sarakani who was declared a Sotapan, but he was a Buddha. In that place, the Buddha also talked about this faith follower and Dhamma follower, but he did not mention their names, right? And did not say what sort of teachings they accept. But in this Okkanti Samyutta, it is specifically stated that they accept the teachings of anicca, impermanence, changing, becoming otherwise, with respect to the 6 senses and so forth. Only in this Okkanti Sutta is it specified. Also in Sotapatti Samyutta, there is nothing specified or mentioned about the Sotapan having a glimpse of Nibbana. Right? If you really go through the whole Samyutta, there's nothing mentioned about that. That's why people who just read the Sotapatti Samyutta may come to the wrong conclusion that they could be Sotapanna because they fulfill all the conditions, like I said just now. If you look at other suttas, it's mentioned here and there, bits and pieces here and there, and then we try to piece together the jigsaw to get a whole picture. Okay?
Bhante, you mentioned just now that the non-returner anagami, if they attain jhanas, they be born in the respective jhana realms. How about those that do not attain jhanas? Where are they going to be reborn to? Because they are non-returner. So where are they going to be? Thank you.
I thought I said that even if they don't attain jhana, they will automatically be reborn in the pure abodes upon their death. Yeah, the pure abodes, Suddhavasa, a realm for anagamis.
Bhante, I read in some sutra whereby the Buddha sometimes gave a gradual discourse to his listeners, explaining about how they can be reborn in the heavenly planes after having done dana and sila. And he also further explained that once they become a deva and all the merits have been used up, they may drop down to the lower planes of existence. So my question to Bhante is, what if our merits, good merits that propel us to be reborn into the heavenly plane, already fully used up, we may drop down?
Yeah, of course. Not talking about just sense-sphere devas. Even after you have gone beyond sensual desire, attain the jhanas, and go up to the Brahma realm, even from there, you can come down back to the lower realms. There's no guarantee, unless you become a Sotapanna before going up there.
I see.
So that's why the talk is about guaranteed for stream entry before death.
I see. So that means after the first death as a deva, so the second rebirth, that means we aspire again to be reborn in the heavenly planes. Is it? Because there will be 7 rebirths.
Oh, you mean for the Sotapanna?
Yes.
That's for the Sotapanna.
Yes.
Sotapanna can be anywhere in the central realm. 7 births.
I see. Okay.
Bhante, in the virtues of the Sangha, we mentioned about the 8 individuals who are Aryas.
Yep.
So if one is a Sotapanna, then of course, as he practices, he becomes Sakadagami.
Yep.
So his path is on the path to Sakadagami.
Mm-hmm.
Now, at what point do we define the Magga to a Sotapanna? That means one who is on the path to Sotapanna.
Yeah, I just talked about the faith follower and the Dhamma follower. They have entered the fixed course of rightness, which is the Noble Eightfold Path. They have entered the path. So the faith follower and the Dhamma follower is the first of the 8 types of individuals who are Aryas. They are not just Sotapanna. They are on the way to become Sotapanna. And they will not go down to the lower realms. Yes, by definition. But they have not attained Sotapatti yet.
Yeah, but how do we define one who has entered the Noble Eightfold Path? That means when one is practicing the Noble Eightfold Path, has he entered or not?
Yeah, you enter when you find that the mind automatically refrains from these 10 causes of unwholesome action. That's probably the criteria for it. Because in this Aggacitta Samyutta, it doesn't say anything about the faith follower or the Dhamma follower having to verify the teachings of the Buddha personally through personal experience. It just says that he accepts the teachings based on faith or after pondering over. Right? So it's faithful acceptance of intellectual acceptance. But because of the strength of this acceptance, whether it's intellectual or faithful, he is able to restrain himself from committing any of the 10 causes of unwholesome action. That's why he will not go down to the lower realms. And that's why he is destined to attain the fruit of stream entry before he dies. Okay?
Bhante, the faith follower, does he practice samadhi and vipassana? Because my own experience, if I don't do samadhi, I don't think I can just have faith, and then I don't know if I can be like that. I just thought of that. I might not be able to control my samadhi. I might not have the wisdom to actually not do the 10 bad things.
Well, it's just like Sarakani, the Sakyan who was declared a Sotapanna by the Buddha. He was drinking all the way until before he died. And then he became a Sotapanna just before he died. Yeah. So maybe if you are a diligent faith follower or Dhamma follower, you also might end up like that. You get a samadhi before you die.
Let's say I still want to enjoy this life, but the next life, I plan to be a Sotapanna, because you say, rather than I go weekly, yearly plan now, how to plan to be a Sotapanna next life. Thank you.
Planning for Sotapanna next life is risky lah. You better be a faith follower or Dhamma follower, and then before you die, you'll become a Sotapanna. And after that, you can go wherever you want to. Okay, anyone else?
Bhante, I'd like to go back to the earlier question asked about what if the Anagami does not develop first jhana, where will the Anagami be reborn? It suddenly dawned upon me this Samyutta Nikaya 55.5, where there was a conversation between Buddha and Sariputta, and the Buddha asked Sariputta, what is a stream winner? Who is a stream winner? And Sariputta said that a stream winner is one who has actually fulfilled the Noble Eightfold Path. Meaning that by implication, the Sotapanna would be somebody who has actually developed the first jhana, by the definition of sama samadhi. So if that being the case by inference, an anagami should have also developed the first jhana at the very least. So I do not see how the possibility of an anagami not having developed jhana, or at least the first jhana at the very least. This just dawned upon me.
Well, the thing is, Ajahn Thanissaro made a distinction between attaining the jhana and mastering the jhanas. He says that in order to attain any of the 4 stages of awakening, one needs the jhana. But that jhana need not have to be something that you master. Like this Sarakani, he was a drinker until just before he died. So he got his jhana just before he died, not before that. So he did not go for retreats and sit down and develop jhana. It came just before he died.
So he merely attains the jhana and not masters it.
Yeah,
So he
no.
doesn't abide in the jhana until he dies.
Yeah. Yes. Anagamis also, if they don't deliberately develop the jhanas, before they die, they will get the jhana. And then they will be reborn in Suddhavasa.
Of course, Bhante, the jhana that we are talking about, the Sutta jhana and not really the Visuddhimagga jhana.
Yes.
We as Buddhists learn Buddhism, but somehow someone got enlightened, but somehow someone just learn and they don't get enlightened. What are the factors? Is it just karma or other things that we should be aware of so that we can get enlightened?
If you are not possessed of the 5 spiritual faculties, faith or belief, energy, mindfulness, samadhi, and wisdom, then you cannot attain anything. So this must come with you from your past life. Okay? Whether a person attains awakening or makes spiritual progress quickly or slowly also depends on the maturity of these 5 spiritual faculties. So if you have cultivated before in a past life and it's brought forward to this life, then easy for you, very fast. If you only started this life, then very difficult.
Someone in meditation retreat, some sort like has realized that actually there's no self. The brain is some sort like leading the whole process. So is this a glimpse of enlightenment or is this a normal?
I would say this is a glimpse of anatta, a glimpse of not self. Yeah, but not a glimpse of nibbana yet.
How about a glimpse of sato?
Sotapanna. Huh? No. It seems that the first fruit will have to be a glimpse of nibbana itself. Anyone else?
One day I ask one more question. How long it takes for an individual on the Magga individual to attain Pala, to become a Pala individual? How long it takes? 1 mind moment or many lifetimes?
According to the commentary, it's just 1 mind moment. 1 mind moment is, you know how fast 1 mind moment is? In a snap of the fingers, there could be millions of mind moments. That's according to the commentary. But according to the suttas, it doesn't seem to be that way, because the Dhammanusari and the Sadhanusari, the Dhamma follower and the faith follower, they have a long space before they actually attain the fruit of stream entry.